Hello, this reading is a message from Archangel Michael. So let's take a moment to take a deep breath. You're going to use your own intuition to decide if one or more of these has some information for you to reflect on. And I'm calling in Archangel Michael to help me read the information and deliver the messages most accurately. Remember, it's general, so just take what pertains to you. It's going to be pick 1, pick 2, and pick 3. Okay, let's go ahead and start with pick number 1. Pick number 1. I don't know if we'll have this pyramid in view. I guess we'll put it right here. Big picture view is Earth School, life lessons, soul growth, study higher learning. So this is like you looking down at Earth, deciding to go in and learn some things, right? So whatever you're in the middle of right now, this is an invitation to look at it from a bigger picture view, just for this moment. Try it on if you're not usually trying it on. Let's anchor you there for a moment to take a look, and look as if the things that you're going through are actually part of lessons that you're learning while you're here on Earth School, things that your soul wanted to experience. Then we have I remember. This is the soul plan, the fated life versus the destiny life. So when the plan was put together, there may be certain parts of your path that cause remembrances that seem familiar. Maybe it's deja vu. Maybe it's like, I feel like I've known this person. Maybe it's like, yes, this feels like I'm right on track. It feels so right in my body to be doing this now. I feel so connected to everything. Everything's falling together. Everything's like a sign. Everything's an omen. Everything is a synchronicity. Okay, so these are the experiences that are here to show you that you're on track and to give you remembrances to the bigger picture view. And it's also like there are certain things that are fated for you to experience, but once you learn what you need to learn from those experiences, it's time to take that information and move on to the next experience so that you ultimately work towards your destiny. You come as a cosmic explorer, meaning this may not be your first time on Earth, and you may not be just learning on Earth, you know? This is just one of the experiences you're having. So interesting, we got I remember, and then from these cards, you got I forgot. So there may be things that you don't remember, right? And those are causing you to feel confused or unclear or disconnected and unsure of the path that you're on. And so it's okay to feel that way too about some things. But if you are getting signs and symbols, you know, the more you pay attention to them, the more it's going to feel like you are connected, the more clarity you will gain. But you don't have to have clarity to move forward. This is the Fool card. Be a fool. A fool will go where others won't go, say what others won't say. A fool is representative of Aries, which is the baby of the zodiac, which is the first sign in the zodiac, meaning when Aries takes a step forward, Aries is going with determination, with an inspired action, and with no real doubt that they can achieve, because they don't have any prior experience deterring them from making the moves and knowing that there is a solution for whatever they encounter along the way. So this is an invitation to be in that state of mind as you traverse these difficult things that you may not feel clear on. Like attracts like. So, during the course of this lesson plan of this school, you are bringing towards you things that show you the energy that's in you. So in order to continue on, it's important that you understand that you take responsibility for what you're attracting in your life, and take it like it's a sign showing you something that's in you. So you're looking at how you respond to things, you're looking at how you feel about things, you're looking at how you treat things. And where you have distortions, you will be acting them out, and they will be reverberated to you by what you're experiencing out in earth, on earth, in your life. That's so weird. Did you hear my keys kind of jingle over there? Like when something like that happens, like nothing is over there to touch it. I don't know why it just shifted like that. But energy, was here. And so I am kind of tapping into the unknown, right? And like Sodan, an unknown thing happened. I don't know what caused that. And I don't have to know, right? Like I'm just going to feel and be in the present moment. And what I actually feel is like that was a sign. That was a sign that said, like, you just unlocked something. Here, I'm going to move these keys. You know what I mean? Okay, snake, healing. You are a healer. So this is helpful information to know along the way for your course. So since you're a healer, you're going to attract healers, meaning the people you attract, the places that you are attracted to, are going to show you the places in you that you need to heal. Because before you heal others, you're really going to be focused on healing yourself, right? And courage. Ask for what you want. So when you are acting in courage, you're going to attract others that will be acting in courage, that will ask for what they want. Meaning there's not going to be any ambivalence or games playing or manipulation or coercion or any of those lower density ways of relating that have been explored on Earth in your relating dynamics. If you do have any of those, like if you have something in you blocking you from acting in courage or asking for what you want, then those are the things that are looking to be healed. That's part of the school. Right? Because your real goal would be to balance out and 0 point any energy, which means that you're not acting with resistance to anything, that you're flowing with energy, which means you have full acceptance and understanding of all parts of energy, which means both sides, both things are true. Leadership and exploration. So we already got Cosmic Explorer, and now we're getting exploration here. So I think that once you learn these lessons, these fated lessons, these things that you needed to learn, then you're going to take that full position and go forward into a pioneering space and lead yourself into something that hasn't been experienced here on Earth. So you're not just restricted to being the student. You will also be the teacher, but you'll have something to teach when you venture out on your own, not when you're reverberating or repeating things that have already been done here on Earth over and over again. What you're doing with those things when you have them going on is understanding them more fully so that you can balance them out and then see above them. Okay? Now, let's see. Carried silently, burdens. Yes. So I think that you are someone who may be experiencing all of this stuff and not talking about it. You don't have anyone around you that maybe would be interested in having those conversations. You have a lot of people around you that forgot that this is Earth School, that wouldn't look at it like that are just trying to survive. And so you are carrying these burdens silently. You may even have to pretend you're someone that you're not to blend in, right? So Like maybe you know yourself to be this expansive being because there's parts of you that remember that, but everyone around you isn't doing that. So in order to kind of live life, you kind of pretend and you blend in and you just do what is expected of you. In actuality, since like attracts like, if you pretend that you're something that you're not, you're going to attract other people that pretend they're something that they're not. You'll never line up with the people that can be true to themselves as explorers, as cosmic explorers here on Earth to learn, if you don't allow yourself to be seen that way. Yeah, it does seem that your attention has been elsewhere. You haven't been focusing on life through this lens up to now, okay? Interesting, because after attention is elsewhere, we got ethical awareness. And see, this is a being balancing out the scales. They're standing in water. Water is emotions. So they're taking any emotions that haven't been accepted and been loved, meaning if there's anything suppressed, denied, pushed away, stuck, stagnant, not allowed, this is what needs to be balanced out, okay? And in order to keep out of balance of those things, because they want to be balanced, the universe is seeking balance at all times. So you'd have to do things to keep it out of balance. And those things would be out of your ethics. Like, those are not ethical things. To be manipulative, to be pretending you're something that you're not, to be suppressing, denying, avoiding, you know? Those are not ethical things. To try to elicit from somebody else the what's the word I want to look for here? The comfort you need for your emotions or whatever, like, or the importance or something to like stroke your pride or anything like that. It's like, those are not even real things. That's part of Earth School because that's been going on here, but you're exploring what that means. And if you just live it instead of exploring it, then you'll always just be in it, and then you'll be in a fate loop and you'll never graduate out towards your destiny. Okay? And here we have victim mentality, almost free, 4D. Okay, so I think that you've been noticing these things. You've been noticing the synchronicities, the signs. You've been understanding that there's something more to this, even if the people around you aren't necessarily acknowledging it or talking about it with you. You've been noticing it. And so what you may also be noticing is that there is a certain victim mentality that is used to stay in this lower density kind of way of relating, where you need to manipulate, coerce, shame, blame, point outward. Whereas as you graduate and get free of those more dense ways of experiencing Earth, you'll see yourself feel lighter, more whole, bigger awareness, and you will no longer feel a need to relate in such a way that has victim mentality. And that someone has to be a victim, you know? Like, there's no hierarchy, really. There's maybe a hierarchy in awareness, but it's not in importance. It's not in value. Okay. Then we got lucky, snake eyes. You may feel like you're lucky at times. You may feel like at certain times things just kind of come together for you in a way that's like, wow, you know, and you feel like the golden child. And it's like, well, that was part of school too. That's something that you're learning from as well. Who are you when things are going your way? Are you generous? Are you prideful? Are you hoarding? Can you still be in a balanced way with your emotions when good things happen, as they do, as well as when you feel victimized by life? Your positivity, faith, and optimism are a real wealth that you have here. You have an abundance of wealth in those areas here while you're here on earth. I think that you are a very loving being, and I think that you've maybe been scared to act on it. Like maybe you have all these doubts and fears. Like instead of being the fool, you have experiences that you've had on earth that are still lingering, that have taught you certain things. But what they've taught you is to avoid certain emotions. So that's why it's important to let yourself feel the emotions, sit in the ocean of emotion, accept it, feel it, be with it, be present with it. You know, whatever we feel is just a passing thing. But if we deny or suppress it, then it's always going to be looming over us, like a big wave waiting to kind of take over us. And if we don't actually be present with it as it does, it'll just repeat until it gets our presence. And so you find that this is the stuff that ends up clouding your view, because then you see life through the veil, through the filter of that thing that you haven't allowed yourself to be present with, because you can't see above it until you do. So that way, when you're feeling the inspiration to act, you're not able to, because you have all these doubts and fears that take you off track. So what does Archangel Michael have to say? Your inner guidance is real and trustworthy. Archangel Michael is basically saying, you know, those things, whether it be doubts and fears that are inside you, or the knowings that you're here for a reason, and you're learning something, and you're going somewhere, and there's more to this than what you see or what others are seeing around you. That's all true. All of it's true. Even your doubts and fears are anchored in you from an earlier time. And it's something that is calling for your presence. It's not something that you actually have to be deterred by. Everything is like, embrace it. Everything is like, surrender control and don't resist things. And that's really the keys to get through. But paying attention to what's on the inside, because it's real. That's what Archangel Michael is pointing out to you now in this position that you're in, which it sounds like you've been going through several stages of awakening. And sometimes what happens when we're awakening is we remember and then we forget, and then we remember and then we forget. And what's happening there is you remember and you become aware that that you've been repeating a pattern, and then you fall back into the pattern. So the part of you that forgot is just the part that's still living the pattern, okay? And you fall into that perspective while you're in the pattern. So get both of these parts of your perspective to be on board with the idea that you are going to be present with what arises, whatever feelings are trying to be avoided by being in that pattern are just going to be allowed and accepted. And that right there is going to disassemble and integrate that pattern into you so you can see past it. And then you will remember again. So every time you forgot, but you go, oh, I remember there was a different way to feel about this, but I don't feel that way now. Or maybe you don't even, remember it that much. In the beginning of awakening, I would make signs for myself and put them around my bed, just so I would remember, like, that there was that other way to feel and understand and see. So that I could remember to make the choice for myself to be present with what is, so that I wasn't resisting, I wasn't trying to go into one of those coping mechanisms that I really understood from that other view were no longer effective. I had learned what I needed to learn from them, and it was time to integrate. And so the only parts of me that didn't want to integrate were the parts of me that were scared of feeling the pain. So I had to be courageous, I had to be willing to be brave, really. I had to be willing to go even though I was scared. You are prepared for this. You have what it takes. Okay? So remember, this is just information to reflect on. Take what is helpful to you and leave the rest for someone else. I want to thank you for spending your time with me, and we'll see you in a future reading. I picked 2. Okay, let's Look at what we have for you. Message from Archangel Michael. Bigger picture view. We the Hathors. Deep love, mother's milk, birth as a portal. It's really beautiful, and it's a wonderful way to look at Earth. Birth being the portal to enter Earth, which requires mother's milk and deep love. I think you really have to love Earth in order to take a turn here, right? And then we've got wait. It's not time yet. Things are being woven. Okay, so you come in, as a star being into this Earth to have an experience, and you're ready, right? You're ripe with all this knowledge from where you came from, and it's not quite the right time to seed that into Earth. So there is some other things that are being taken care of before you can proceed. And it may be a lot of things. This is the Jack, and I like to say he's the Jack of all trades, master of none. So, in actuality, there are a couple things that you're mastering before you proceed with what you came to do here, which would be your destiny. So one of the things that's going to help you at this time is to play together. And when I talk about playing, we already talked about birth and the mother's milk here. Let's talk about the innocence and the energy of being childlike. Because in the spiritual journey, that's a very valuable perspective to be able to be in. And if you think about the child who plays, goes into each experience with curiosity, is not attached to the outcome, like doesn't need anyone to do anything specific for them to be satisfied with what's going to happen in the experience they're entering, and also it doesn't have expectations of people or themselves. Like, if I'm going to climb this jungle gym, like, I might make it, I might not. Like, I'm an explorer here as a child, and I'm just curious to know what it's like. So because I don't have expectations of myself or an attachment to the outcome, if I fall after a couple rungs, it's okay. I just get back up, and now I know what that was like. Like, all my energy is mine, my experience was mine to have, and it's just been an experience. So it's playful. There's no high stakes, right? There's no shame about having fallen or not achieved, going all across. If you think about it, those are the programs we get from our parents or peers, and those are not helpful when we're playing. They're not even useful. It's like you're not any less valuable as a being to explore things and fail. It's actually part of being here and learning. I want to know more. Yeah, like just getting into that state of curiosity is so big and so right for you right now. Thoughts create your reality. So I want to know more also says you don't know everything. There's more to know. There's limitless possibilities for what exists here. Can you explore as an innocent child who is curious, who doesn't already have it all figured out? Then we have never judge another. So when we talked about the kid playing on the playground, say they fell and say a peer started saying, oh, you're a loser, oh, you can't even make it across there. It's like that judgment, okay, places a burden, an energetic burden on the child. Now the child feels more inhibited when they go explore their world, and they may do things to try to avoid feeling whatever shame or blame the other peer was trying to put on them by energetically accusing them. Okay? So there are real consequences to doing this. Now, the peer who did that obviously was just passing along something that was done to them, right? They got it from somewhere. It was probably done to them. Now, instead of feeling the pain of being shamed or humiliated by someone they expected to treat them as an equal, they have passed it along to another. So you see how it just becomes a really contagious virus if we are passing along judgments to each other instead of being brave enough to feel what we feel when we encounter something. So a confident child is just going to take what that peer says and understand that that's a reflection of that peer, not of them. That they're allowed to try the jungle gym and fall, and it doesn't make them any less valuable. Right? Don't we all want that perspective and understanding for our children so that they're able to explore their world without carrying burdens? Freedom, you always have a choice. So we have a choice to not continue and perpetuate any patterns that were passed along to us. And we have a choice on what we want to explore and what we want to let go of and what we want to focus on and what we want to think and what we want to believe. We have giving up, victimization, martyrdom. I'm going to kind of dig into these other cards and see what is your state, to see what this means. Okay, yeah, I think that you are giving up victimization and martyrdom. You're not willing to kind of sacrifice yourself for teaching others at this point, or even think of yourself as a victim. I do believe that you have given that up. You're willing to go where others won't go, say what others won't say, look at other things with a fresh, pure heart, giving the benefit of the doubt like a child. And if you hadn't been in that energy, that's where you're headed. Yeah, you have already laid the foundation for this to be the case. So that may have meant that you needed to walk away from people who were burdening you and who were not allowing you to be in that. And that may be why you felt like you were waiting, because it was like, well, who am I going to play with now, right? Because others weren't understanding where you were at, that you were in this place of freedom. It's like, why would you go play in that pig pen, and getting mud and slinging mud on each other anymore, when it felt so good and free to be able to explore without burdens of judgment. I think you're listening to your spiritual guidance, and maybe you do already have a relationship established with Archangel Michael, and that's maybe perhaps what drew you into this particular reflection offering. I think you've been through rough things. I think it took a lot. It's not like you came here and didn't experience anything hard and that's why you stayed pure. No, you regained your purity after experiencing a lot of hard things. So you already understand the detriment and the heaviness of being in those other points of view. Now, having been in those other points of view, you can understand when other people are in those points of view and why they try to pass that judgment, why that peer might not want to feel that pain himself and instead tries to pass it along. Like, you can understand that because you know it's painful, because you had to feel that for yourself. But now, having done that, you know that it's also possible to make it through there. So you can hold the space for others. You can understand that they are in pain, that whatever they're doing is being done through the filter of whatever they're believing at the time. Whatever they're thinking is creating the reality that they're living. And even though that's not your reality, you understand that realities can be really rough. So you're working on your legacy, and maybe that is through family. Just the way you live, I think, is your legacy. Clean energy food. Okay, so you may be also eating very cleanly, and if not, this may be a suggestion to do so. That's where you're going to find your abundance of energy and strength and courage to go on. And what does Archangel Michael have to say about all this? Romance angels are helping you. Okay, so it's pointing to a level of self-care, right? It's saying, like, make sure you're eating very well and paying attention to what it is that's important to you, right? These things are important to you, and so you want to have the energy for those things. So treat yourself very well. You will leave a legacy based on how you live, right? And you will have someone to share this with. And if it's been rough in a relationship that's already existing, it's going to help when you focus on the level of self-care it's suggesting here, right? While having empathy. And if there isn't somebody else in the picture that, you know, if it was more that example of like, well, where's the other people I can play with? You know, it's like, it is being worked on, and while that's being worked on, work on you. Work on the level of care and purity you give to your own self and your body. Okay? Okay, pick 2. This was your information to reflect on, your message from Archangel Michael. First, there was a message about what you may have been through and the experiences you were having and why there was a certain pause and wait. And then it's just following it up with, you know, yeah, it's being worked on. Don't worry, we got you. First, it's like, we see you. This is what we see. If you resonated with that part, then you'd be more willing to trust that, yes, the romance aspect is being worked on as well. So keep following your spiritual guidance. You've built the foundation you needed. Keep going. It's a beautiful process that you're still in and ongoing. And sometimes when we're in a relationship, it's easy for us to project onto another. So maybe it's either like you're trying to match up with a partner and it's not happening, or you're with a partner and they're not growing at the rate that you want them to, or something like that. It's like, we'll never judge another because their perspective is theirs, and they may be learning something a little bit different from you, right? So anything that you see as a judgment, you know, that you're putting on them is something that you can clean up in yourself. So your thoughts are creating your reality. So what is it that you're thinking? And can you bring that back into yourself? Acknowledge it. Find out why you're thinking it. Understand it more fully. Accept that you're thinking it. Love the part of you who thought it. Okay. Okay. And that's going to help things balance out and stay more stable in your foundation. Alright, pick 2. That's going to complete your reading. Thank you for spending your time with me. Perhaps we'll see you in a future one. I pick 3. Just going to Palo Santo a little bit before we proceed with your message from Archangel Michael. Let's see a bigger picture view. We've got cracked open, rock bottom, surrender to the alchemy of life. Okay. So if you're feeling low, if you've been having kind of a dark night of the soul, if you just had your reality kind of shattered, things didn't go the way you expected, something kind of crumbled that you had been counting on and comfortable in, something about your reality changed with a realization that you had. This is saying, like, this has been part of your experience here on Earth. It may have had to do with somebody else. You have a soul tie here. And it's encouraging you to accept what is. The more that we resist what is, the more uncomfortable we're going to be. Okay? So it's kind of this thing that you learned when you're going through the spiritual journey, and you may already understand this, is that surrender is a very important tool, and that what we resist persists. So it's like, accept what is and know that it's happening for you. So the only part of us that doesn't know what's happening for us is the ego, who has an agenda. And the agenda of the ego is to protect us from feeling certain things, or from experiencing certain things that it deems painful, right? And or humiliating or wrong or bad, right? Or risky. So the part of you that was doing certain things to avoid feeling a certain thing or experiencing a certain thing has been disillusioned and understands now that it was futile for it to be doing that. So it's kind of like an ego death. It's a part of your ego is feeling like it lost out. It failed. But failure is actually not wrong. Failure is part of learning. So the ego part of us that is afraid of failing may need our comfort, right? So understanding that, sometimes in punishment and reward parenting paradigms, where we're taught that making a mistake causes us to get punished, we root in a belief that making mistakes is bad because we don't want to be punished or humiliated or rejected. But in actuality, I'm sure there's another part of you that can understand that mistakes are actually necessary to the learning process, and we have to allow ourselves to make mistakes. And actually, if humiliation or rejection is the worst thing that happens from making that mistake, even if you accidentally caused a murder from a mistake, or not a murder, a homicide or something, right? If something actually died from this mistake, like, you have to be present with the pain of that. I know that's really extreme, but I'm going to an extreme for a reason here, because it's very unlikely that that would be the case, right? But if you get okay with that extreme, then handling whatever actually does happen is going to be a lot easier, you see? So sometimes that's a tactic or a tool that I use. It's not necessary to use that tool if it's not for you. I was a fool, yeah. So actually, the energy of being a fool is such a valuable energy. The fool will go where others won't go, say what others won't say. They're not in a comfort zone. There's nothing telling them that they can't. So if you look at the fool from that perspective, you can honor the process that you went through and know that you actually learned something from being willing to take steps in a direction that you were called to. And sometimes we can even get guided into a direction that causes a failure for us. And sometimes that can even cause us to question our guidance and question our intuition and things like that. But it's like, well, if you have an energy rooted in you that is harboring a false belief or limiting you from living to your fullest potential because you're unwilling to do certain things, because you're unwilling to risk certain things, then being led into the place which causes you to experience that is actually the most direct route that your soul can take in order to free you of the prison that you had yourself in, simply by coping in that manner. You see? So being a fool is actually a valuable thing in this situation for you. Express your feelings. Now, one thing that the ego does a lot of times is tries to formulate plans of action or coping mechanisms that allow us to avoid feeling something that was scary to feel, something that we didn't understand, or that was very painful, something like that. So it's like, express your feelings. Sometimes this could be in a letter that we don't send, creating art, writing a story, whatever it may be. There's a feeling here that needs to be expressed. So in accordance with hitting rock bottom, with being cracked open, with being disillusioned, what is the feeling that immediately comes up and that you may have already pushed away, suppressed, denied, tried to avoid? Maybe there's an addiction that is present that you're using to try to avoid feeling that, to ignore it there. But it's going to be here, okay? It's going to be here, and it needs to be accepted. Retreat. Stop trying to make something happen. Yeah. So sometimes one of our coping mechanisms can be to use our manipulative or coercive tactics. And this requires us to try to force somebody else to act in a way that we want. And this could be what this situation is that you're disillusioned about. And in actuality, withdrawing that energy to put it back into yourself to figure out why you want to do that would be the most beneficial thing for you at this time. So it feels like loss and despair, and maybe that's the feeling that you don't want to feel. Okay, so maybe you did lose something, and it was valuable to you, and it feels like you have despair. And this is the feeling that you need to express. Communicate emotion day to day. Wow, look at these cards here. I mean, here's more. Now, earlier on, it's likely that you developed a coping mechanism in order to avoid feeling emotion. Now, you have to slow things down in order to let this come up then. Because you're so good at just not acknowledging it's there. It's not even a part of your focus, right? So you have to slow down. You have to immerse yourself in a place where you're alone, perhaps, so that you can't avoid this feeling. You don't have the alcohol. You don't have TV to distract. You don't have a book. You don't have people asking you for advice. You don't have your music. You just have you and you. You know what I mean? And then communicating your emotions day to day, it's like practice with that. And if you're sad, it's okay to say you're sad. And if you don't have people around you that you can say that to a journal, say that to a therapist. There needs to be a permission for you to express how you feel. Psychic touch. So, one of the things that you have the ability to do is feel into subtle energies. Energies kind of stick to things, like even this would have energy stuck to it from the places it's been, and you know, who's touched it, where it came from. All of that can be stuck to this until it's cleared. And you have that ability, but because you have been busy not letting yourself feel certain things, that is cut off from you at this time. So you do have that ability though, and it might help you to utilize that ability you have in order to start getting your feelings to come up. Like, you know, hold an object that reminds you of something that you lost so that you can start feeling it. You know what I mean? Rebirth, yeah. So we talked about how that could be considered like an ego death when a part of our coping mechanisms stops working and breaks apart. Well, an ending always leads to a new beginning, so this is a rebirth for you. Meaning you're starting fresh, like a seed that's just sprouted. There's support for you. You might not feel supported, right? Like, especially if your coping mechanism was to not honor the way you feel, you're probably surrounded by people who also do not honor the way you feel. If you have not valued your feelings as an important thing to be looked at, then the people around you probably don't do that either. So it's important to know, or to get yourself some support, to support yourself, to surround yourself with people who are stable, who are communicating their emotions day to day, and who are willing to be present with yours because they've been present with their own. And this might be in the form of a therapist. Gentlemen, kind, greetings, curious. There may have been part of you that, you know, you even denied because you were in the coping mechanisms. Like, what comes to mind is somebody who I love years ago. He grew a scraggly beard, and one time he said to me that the reason he grew the scraggly beard was so that no one would ask him for directions. And it was just kind of a joke, right? Like, he figured, like, if he looked scraggly, then no one was gonna, like, come to him for help. He looked like, grumpy. And I think that there's something here where you may have hidden the soft, tender, kind, nice parts of you, the innocent, childlike, curious parts of you at times, as a way of deterring people from accessing the emotions or expecting emotions from you. And so it may be like time to start allowing those parts of you to be there. And this can be for men or women, Abundance mindset. Yeah. Knowing that everything's happening for you is going to be so valuable, because it will stop you from sinking into victim mode. Okay, victim mode is where you feel like the world's against you. And if you feel like that, then it's going to be difficult to move through into this rebirth. This rebirth is offering you an opportunity to change that mindset to a growth mindset, to know, if all this is happening for me, what am I learning from this? What can I let go of? How do I want to live now? Things like that. You have the strength. You have what it takes to traverse this heartbreak. And it is heartbreak. It's very plain here. This is the Three of Swords. There has been heartbreak. And it's either heartbreak that happened before your coping mechanism disintegrated, or because your coping mechanism disintegrated. Either way, whether it's older heartbreak, heartbreak between being rejected by a parent when your emotions were brought forth, or from a relationship that you previously had that broke your heart, or one that you were more recently in that broke your heart, it's requiring your strength to support yourself through this process of change, and offering your own strength to yourself to be present with you as you feel your emotions. And you continue to feel them. Make room to feel them all along. Oh my gosh, look what Archangel Michael has to say. So this is the Archangel Michael card. What does Archangel Michael have to say? It says, honor and trust your feelings, So this avoidance of feeling these kind of feelings has preoccupied some of your operating system on a day-to-day basis. And it's also blocked out some of the ways that you are open to energy and open to interpreting your intuition and signs and symbols and just your existence here on Earth. Okay, so you're actually stepping into this place where your awareness is going to be bigger and where you can feel your way through life, okay, because you have clairsentience. And you were denying yourself clairsentience because you were not valuing your feelings. And that likely came from a time earlier on in childhood where you brought emotions to a parental figure, likely a mother, a caretaker of some sort, and it was rejected in some way. It wasn't acceptable. It was either like hushed, told it was wrong, told what to do instead, told it was inappropriate, whatever it was. Or got you rejected, or got you, maybe there was a level of disgust shown to you, even if it was subtle, annoyance, or anything like that. That as a child or an infant, you interpreted as bad, wrong, don't feel that, don't bring that forward. And it just repeated as a cycle, right? So now that cycle is ready to be released, or it has been released, and now it's like going to open you to this whole other way of being where you can actually use your feelings and your ability to trust yourself, to honor them and recognize them, something that was not done for you as a child but that you now will do for yourself. And this is a gift that you have to navigate Earth with. It's a very powerful, beautiful one, because if you know how something feels, you know if it's good for you or not. It'll feel good for you or not. You won't let any more foxes into the hen house, so to speak. Okay. You won't have to use those methods of trying to manipulate or coerce things to go your way, or so that you don't get hurt. because you will be able to feel when things are in alignment with you and when they're not. You'll know when you've outgrown something. You'll know when something's right for you. You'll feel things through a resonance, a harmony. You know, when a note just hits, when someone hits the wrong note, you can tell because it doesn't feel right. Well, the same thing for navigating life. Your feelings can be honored and then used as your navigation system. Okay? Very beautiful. Okay, this was your information to reflect on from Archangel Michael. I hope that you find that helpful. Just take what is helpful to you, leave the rest. And thank you for spending your time with me.